love, love, until I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome to Spirt of Life. I'm Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Stephen Austin. Welcome to the show. Could you tell me a bit about your background and how you came to about writing and reading books about Maria Valtorta?
Okay, I have an honors civil engineering degree, and I spent a year in the seminary. And during the past couple of years, I've done extensive research into Maria Valtorta, and I actually wrote a very large eBook about it.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me more about Maria Valtorta? So I'm not very good at pronouncing her name.
Oh, that's fine. Maria Valtorta was an Italian Catholic mystic, famous both for her personal holiness as well as her extensive writings, the most notable of them being the Gospel as Revealed to Me, which is revelations about the entire Gospel of Jesus. And she was born in Caserta, Italy in 1897 and started receiving these revelations when she was at the age of 46.
46? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what were some of these revelations that she got?
Okay, 98.5% of all the Gospel passages in the canonized Gospels she had visions of, where she heard the spoken dialogue of Jesus and over 500 different personalities of his time. And she reported these in meticulous detail in her writings.
Wow, and she's a mystic, I hear?
Yep. She's an Italian Catholic mystic. She actually had some personal experiences with Saint Padre Pio. A lot of people are familiar with him. He's one of the famous mystics, most famous mystics of the Church. So mystics are often given revelations or visions or dictations from God for the benefit of the general population.
Wow, and what was her mission in life?
Okay, her mission in life was to pray and offer up her sufferings for the good of souls, as well as to receive these revelations for the benefit of everybody, Catholics and non-Catholics. The fruits of it has been tremendous conversions to the Catholic faith and conversions of people who lived a sort of lukewarm life and wanted to become more fervent.
And how has she inspired or influenced you?
She completely changed my life. Absolutely, I could write an entire book about how she has inspired me. She just deepened my relationship with God. She has completely expanded my knowledge of the Scriptures, my knowledge about anything that has to do with theology, even philosophy, because her writings are so deep and so just amazing. They captivate you, and they draw you in as if you were there with Christ 2,000 years ago, because you actually hear what he said, you actually see what he did, and it's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and how does that help young adults? Because I know you're a young adult, and to be inspired, why do you think her works would inspire young adults like you?
It's a movie script. Many young adults are turned off by a lot of the theological works out there because they find it dry or boring. It doesn't really touch them personally. They don't feel like they can apply it to their everyday life. Maria Valtorta just completely goes against the grain, because it is like a movie script. It's like you're there, and you can live with Christ. You can see what he said. You can see how he responded to his friends and his enemies. You can see what he taught and how he lived, and it just draws you in, like you would watching a documentary or a movie. And I think that's really important for our audiovisual age, where most people grew up watching television and movies.
And how has she made a difference in your life, in your faith?
I feel called to a mission to spread her writings and to make people aware of the truth about her revelations and how powerful and how wonderful it can change people's lives. And so I'm devoting my life to spreading her writings and to spreading the good it can do. So that's the way it's changed my life. But personally, it's changed my life by enabling me to bear suffering in life better, enabling me to love people better, to not judge people, it's hard to put it in just a few sentences. It just has transformed every area of my life.
Wow. I heard that you were actually trying to actually go against your brother because he was a follower of her. And
oh yeah, I'm a traditional skeptic, especially when it comes to visions, apparitions, miracles, locutions. I'm a skeptic, and so originally I set out to prove how she's wrong. You go on the internet, 80% of the websites are against her. However, I researched it, and and found the primary sources, the best sources, things in Italian. You know, the original, the original like testimonies of high clerks in Rome who have analyzed her writings, and it converted me to the opposite attitude. I was able to find out how to prove how her writings are authentic and are very acceptable, and I believe that they're 100% true.
Fantastic. Yes. And what have your family like? What do they think about what you're doing?
Oh, they support it. They're my brother's in the seminary, and he's the one who introduced me to her writings, and for his sake, I set out to prove how it's false and wrong. And in my search, I found out that it's true and great. And so him and I have a close collaboration, you know, in reading her writings and discussing it. And
yes, has it been approved by the church, like what she's writing?
Oh, definitely. Viewers can find out more information about my ebook, but it's been approved by 28 bishops. It's received multiple imprimaturs, which means it's an official approval by a bishop. Multiple popes have spoken highly of it. Definitely, it's approved. When you actually get to the nitty gritty of the true information that's out there, no one can deny that it's free of errors and faith and morals, and just very good for souls. There's nothing bad in it or any reason why anyone can't read it or benefit from it.
And she has been described as a victim soul. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? I mean, in my mind, it sort of brings out things like torture, but what does it mean?
All right. Countless saints in the history of the church were so-called victim souls, which means that they suffer to gain merit and grace to help souls convert and to save their soul, as well as to placate God's justice because of all the sin in the world. The greatest victim soul is our Lord, you know, the crucifixion. And followers of him the greatest saints have often had the stigmata or various diseases or other afflictions by which they gain merit to help souls. And so we call them victim souls. It's always a voluntary offering of their own free will out of love of God. They want to suffer to help others. And so that's what a victim soul is.
Wow, very interesting. Mm-hmm. We're going to go for a break now. You've been watching Spirit of Life. We'll be back after a break. Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. I'm Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Stephen Austin. Hello, Stephen. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You've been sharing about Maria Valtorta, and it's very, very interesting. And I'd like to know more about the scientific proof, because I hear that when she writes the poem Man God, that it's actually been historical facts that she's written about. Could you tell me more about that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Research has been done into 8,000 pieces of data in her writing in a whole diverse number of fields: astronomy, geography, topography, history, cultures, just you name it. And it has corresponded to authoritative sources with 99.6% accuracy. And it just blows your mind when you get to the depth of the amount of research done. A Harvard University graduate professor at Purdue University published on the Purdue University engineering website an article where he analyzed her writings for the moon phases of the constellations that she described. And he said that to correlate all of those mentions and all of her visions with her chosen dates and dating system is so complex that it would require a modern computer to do it. But she wrote these visions in the 1940s and failed mathematics in high school. So there's this thing, time and time again, there's all these extraordinary, unexplainable coincidences or proofs. She described in great detail 62 places which were either unknown or not discovered archaeologically until after her death. Wow. She described, in great detail, a tremendous number of locations that were verified later by archaeological digs. Wow. It just begs the question, how? She didn't consult atlases. She was bedridden the entire time she wrote them. She couldn't have gotten this information from other people, and especially because she wrote it in 3.5 years. How in the world did that happen? And she affirms, I know these things by supernatural means, and only by supernatural means.
You said Maria was bedridden. For how long was she bedridden?
28 years.
28 years, wow. Why?
Basically, it started out, she was hit in the back with a with an iron bar, believe it or not, by an anarchist, just randomly one day in the street. Wow. And that set in motion what would eventually make her immobile years later. And she also contracted numerous terrible illnesses, like a tumor. She had heart problems. She had paralysis from time to time that would come and go, a mine of health problems. But even so, she offered it up in a spirit of gratitude to God, love of God, and joy, because she offered herself up, her sufferings up, to help other souls, to save souls. And that's part of what's so amazing about her writings, is that she wrote 15,000 handwritten pages that astound world-renowned biblical scholars, and yet she did it all within a 5-year period while bedridden.
Wow. So did people come to visit her? Like, what was her life like? Did she
Definitely.
have family life and all sorts of things like that?
She lived in the environment of a common household. You know, her mother lived with her. She had visitors from priests, nuns, lay people, university-educated laymen. She was visited by some top church officials, believe it or not, like the Archbishop Karinke, the head of the Congregation for the Causes of Saints, said Mass for her 3 times in her bedroom, wrote letters back and forth with her, 32 letters which have been published. So she's been visited by quite a few people.
Wow, she sounds like she had a full life in spite of being bedridden for 28 years.
Definitely.
And now what about her life has really touched you?
I read her autobiography, and personally, it's the most amazing autobiography I've ever read in my life. And I've read many autobiographies. St. Teresa of the Child Jesus, her autobiography is world famous. St. Augustine's Confessions, it just is so amazing because she suffered so much, and she offered so much to God without holding anything back, that it just blows your mind.
Yes, and what about the writings? Is anything really, specific that you can think of that really has touched you?
What amazes me most is Christ's speeches. You'll read his speech in the Gospel, his parables, or his preaching in the temple, and the Gospel is revealed to me. Her major written work will expand it over. Like 2 sentences in the canonized Gospels will be pages and pages in her Revelation, and they perfectly conform to the Gospels. But it's just absolutely amazing what he says to the Pharisees and scribes, what he says to his friends, what he says to skeptics. It just blows your mind. The wisdom, the power, the authority, the love, the mercy in his words is just incomparable.
Wow, you're very passionate about this. I mean, most people your age are busy doing a career, but if you got thoughts about what you would like to do, like you're going to travel the world with this message?
If God wills it.
Yeah, you've given quite a lot of your time writing. I hear about the eBook that you're writing. How's that going at the moment?
Well, it's going very well. I call it a Summa and Encyclopedia to Maria Valtorta's extraordinary work. So it includes anything you could possibly want to know about Maria Valtorta. You name it, it's in there. It covers the 14 proofs of the divine origin. It covers the position of the popes in the Holy Office on her writings, the position of the statements of high-ranking clerics in Rome. It discusses it has a detailed analysis of her and her revelations according to criteria that you use to judge the authenticity of those things. It has resources. I mean, it has everything. And so it's over 1,000 pages, but it's designed so that somebody can just look at one little section, read it, and glean from it the information they want to know, and move on. So it's it's useful for everybody.
Oh, wow. So it's for a lay person. Is it for cynic or believer? Or?
It's for everyone.
And young people too?
Definitely. It's written so that your average lay person can read it and understand it. It's written very simply and very clearly, but it also has the amount of depth that a scholar could actually benefit from it, because I quote scholars, I quote all walks of people and all walks of life who have analyzed it. So it's an ebook for everybody, really.
Yeah, and how can people get it if they'd like to read your ebook?
Okay, it's hosted on multiple sites, including a few prominent sites. One of them has 80,000 annual visitors a year. But the easiest way for viewers of this program to actually get it would be simply to email me, and then I would email them the ebook as an attachment.
Oh, fantastic. We've got to go for another break. You have been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us, and we'll be back after a few minutes.
Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Stephen Austin. Hi, Stephen.
Hello.
It's been fascinating all you've been sharing about Maria Valtorta. You talked about it being like a movie script when she described the Gospels in her poem Man God.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, what do you mean by, like a movie script?
Okay, when you read the Gospels, for example, let's just take the wedding of Cana, for example. It might say a few sentences like, Jesus was present with his mother and his apostles at the wedding of Cana, and it describes the miracle he did, and a few of the spoken dialogue between Christ and his mother. In the poem of the Man God or the Gospels revealed to me, they're synonymous titles. She describes whole conversations that are an elaboration of that. She describes the scenery in great detail, what the people were doing, when did Christ leave after he performed his miracle, how did he leave. Christ commented on the actual gospel passages for modern man. He commented on what he said and why. What did he mean when he said to Our Lady, what is there still between me and you? So in that sense, it just sort of elaborates and gives greater detail. Maria Valtorta saw things as if she was actually there. She heard the actual words of Christ in the 500 plus personalities in her work. She actually claims, and I believe it, that by a supernatural gift, she was actually able to smell the smells there. Wow. To feel the environment as if she was actually there. And that's why she reports the events like she's a reporter, like she's actually there, and she can hear the written dialogue and report it being actually there.
So she's actually getting the vision and writing while she's having the vision. Mm-hmm. It's not like she dreams and then she writes.
No,
she dreams and writes.
With many mystics like Anne Catherine Emmerich and Maria Valtorta, they write down their vision onto paper after they come out of ecstasy. Maria Valtorta has what's called a partial ecstasy, where she writes it while she's having her vision.
Wow.
Which means that her revelations are much more accurate in the written record compared to many other mystics, which is why science is actually proving that it's 99.6% accurate in scientific fields and historical fields, which is unprecedented. In fact, it's so amazing that I can already hear the chorus of skeptics just like clamoring and saying, oh my gosh, it's impossible. But when you actually look at the evidence and look at the authority of the scientists who have researched it, if they're honest and have an open mind, you can't deny that there's something extraordinary there.
Wow. And I hear also people who are very well known, like Mother Teresa and Padre Pio, and multiple popes have read her book and find it really great.
Mm-hmm. Everybody knows Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta, everybody. And it's been said by trustworthy eyewitnesses that whenever she did her travels, she always carried with her two books. One of them is a book on Eucharistic devotion and adoration, and the other one was the poem of the Man God, or also known as the Gospels Revealed to Me by Maria Valtorta. So she was an avid reader of Maria Valtorta, and it really inspired her life and her work, which is an amazing testimony. Padre Pio, most Catholics know who he is. He's one of the greatest saints of the 20th century. He was a mystic. He had the stigmata. He bilocated. There's countless accounts of miraculous healings and cures from him. So he's a witness of unimpeachable integrity. And a spiritual daughter of Padre Pio, which means she received spiritual direction from him directly, wrote a letter to Dr. Pisani, the publisher of Maria Valtorta's works, and reported that another spiritual daughter who she knows, called Mrs. Elisa Lucci, in 1967 went to confession to Padre Pio and said, Father, I've heard mention of Maria Valtorta's works. Do you advise me to read them? And St. Pio responded, I don't advise you to, I order you to. Wow. And so anyone who believes that Padre Pio has some degree of credibility when they hear that, and I believe that testimony is reliable, that should make them, look a little bit more deeply into Maria Valtorta's revelations.
Yeah, so just for those people who don't know, the stigmata is the bleeding.
Oh yeah, St. Francis of Assisi is the greatest example in the history of the Church. He's the first saint to receive the stigmata. What it is you bear the wounds of Christ in your body, which is an offering to God to help souls and to help participate in Christ's passion, just like St. Paul talked about in Scripture. We fill up the measure of Christ's sufferings in our bodies. So it's part of the Christian vocation of every soul, is to offer up your sorrows, your pains, your sufferings to God.
And by location? What was that?
You can read about it on the internet.
Yeah.
There are countless books about Padre Pio out there. Some saints in the history of the church have had a very extraordinary gift of being able to actually be in two places at once supernaturally. When they're in another place, they might not be physically there, but they might appear to people. St. Teresa of Avila is reported to have done that. St. Padre Pio, various saints, and so that's definitely one of the...
It's great that she's inspired such great people and popes too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Pope Pius XII, he read Maria Valtorta's work for a year, and this is substantiated by eyewitnesses who have personally handed him typewritten copies of the poem of the Man of God, and a person saw a bookmark in his library, and it moved over time. After he read them, he called an audience with the 3 priests in charge of this work, and this audience was reported in the Vatican newspaper the next day as a historic event, and he told them, there is no need to give an opinion as to whether this is of supernatural origin. Publish it just as it is. Wow. He who reads it will understand. Yeah. Cardinal Gagnon, who is a high cleric in the Vatican, wrote to somebody clarifying and saying that his oral command has the same weight as an official imprimatur, which is like an approval of a bishop. So that carries a significant degree of weight. Yes. Pope Paul VI has reported to have read it and sent the whole works to the seminary in Milan. The personal secretary of Pope John Paul II has written a preface for a book about Maria Valtorta where he testifies that Pope John Paul II often read her work. Her work was on his bedside table often. So there's a tremendous amount of testimony.
Yes, that's fantastic. And you've written a lot of this in your eBook.
Oh yeah, it's all there.
How did, again, you had an email. What was the email called that people could get your eBook? What was your email?
Okay, it's deogratias15@gmail.com. So it's DEO.
Yep, DEO.
GRATIAS 15@gmail.com.
Fantastic. Yeah. You've been very inspiring, and I'm keen to read the book myself. So I wish you all the best in your travels around Australia with spreading this. And goodbye, and God bless you.
God bless you too.
You have been watching Spirt of Life. Join us again next week. Goodbye, and God bless you.